Hello YouTube and welcome to another GV anime review. As you can see, back at my old place until I figure out how to properly record at my new place. But today I am reviewing an anime that I had been anticipating for quite some time. When I saw its announcement on AnyChart, I immediately marked it as interesting, and that anime was Citrus. The reason why I had an interest in Citrus was because I wanted to see how this anime would handle a lesbian relationship. We all know how anime likes to handle lesbian relationships and that they tend to drive the Yuri more towards fanservice. But I had a feeling that Citrus might be different. The main heroine of Citrus is Aihara Yuzu, a very flamboyant high school girl who just transferred schools since her mother remarried. But her new ultra strict all-girls school doesn't really complement Yuzu's lifestyle, and on her very first day she immediately has a fireful encounter with the student president Mei. And coming home, there is still another surprise waiting for Yuzu, because it seems that Mei is her new stepsister. Life seems to have turned against Yuzu, but in some weird way she starts to have these weird feelings for Mei. What could be slumbering between these two sisters? I'll answer the question how Citrus handled the Yuri in a second. I want to start this review with the start of the anime. The first episode was a very strong start to this anime. If you watch a lot of romance animes, then you know that romance animes tend to tease you with a possible relationship and especially with physical contact. So when an anime like Citrus smashes you in the face with quite intense physical contact in the very first episode, it makes an impression. The first episode definitely had an impact. It reminded me a lot of the first episode of Kuzuno Honkai. If you remember Kuzuno Honkai or my review of it, then you know that the first episode was an absolute bombshell, and it made that Kuzuno Honkai was an anime that a lot of people were talking about that season. Then let's answer the question, how did Citrus handle the Yuri? In my opinion, it handled it very well. The emerging lesbian relationship between Yuzu and Mei was portrayed like a lesbian relationship is supposed to be portrayed. It was an emerging relationship between two people without it being overly sexual like a lot of Yuri animes do. Not that there isn't any physical contact between the two, there is even more than in your regular romance anime. But it wasn't too much. It wasn't all fan service, and I was really happy about that. Now I know that I've always been a major adversary of sibling love, even when they're not blood related. But honestly, here it didn't bother me that much. That might sound very hypocritical of me, but it seems that I have a much larger problem with a brother-sister relationship than with a sister-sister relationship. I think it's because with a sister-sister relationship, there is no chance of actual intercourse, if you know what I mean, and there is no chance of progeny. Call me a hypocrite, but it is what it is. Now Citrus had a really strong start like Kuzuno Honkai, but unfortunately, unlike Kuzuno Honkai, it wasn't able to keep that strong start during the rest of the anime. After a few episodes, I just felt that Citrus was becoming bland and boring. There wasn't enough input material to keep this anime really interesting. And the further it progressed, the worse it became in my opinion. The ending to the first arc or first half about Mei's father was very generic. I was expecting at least a bit more creativity there. And the stories in the second half about Matsuri and the Tachibana sisters were even more bland than the one about Mei's father. Also, the second half was way too short to carry the two stories that it had. The final story of the sisters only has a few episodes to make the story. In other words, there was literally no time to form any kind of decent development in this story, and therefore it was at least as bland as the other ones. So as a conclusion, Citrus started off strong and had the potential to become a very good Yuri anime. In terms of the Yuri, it was pretty good and not too overly sexual. But the stories surrounding the Yuri were too generic, too short and too bland to keep the viewers' interest. So overall I'm going to rate Citrus at 3 out of 5 stars. And that is mainly because I appreciated the way how they handled the Yuri and didn't turn Citrus into another overly sexual fan service Yuri anime. As I mentioned at the start of my review, the first episode of Citrus reminded me a lot of Kuzu no Honkai or Scum's Wish. Kuzu no Honkai was a very good anime about the dark side of romance and about forbidden romance. The first episode was an absolute bombshell and it was so different than your standard romance animes. If you're into really serious dark romance animes, then Kuzu no Honkai is an absolute watch. And with that I conclude my review of Citrus. As usual, you can find the full list of all my animes and reviews over at Anime Planet. As usual, I will put a link in the description box down below. Now if you want me to review a particular anime from this list, please put it in the comments. Also, if you have a recommendation for me, put it in the comments as well. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, visit me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and subscribe to this channel for more reviews in the future. Then I will say arigatou gozaimasu and I will see you all in the next video.